My dye garden is finally starting to look like something 6 weeks after I directly sowed seeds in the ground. There are also a few plants in there that I started earlier than that in some small pots, but a lot of those got eaten by gophers. And at this point, all the plants look about the same size, whether they were directly sowed in the ground or started previously in the pots. So let's take a look and see what's happening. The dye garden has filled in quite a bit over the last 4 weeks. You can see the indigo, the purple basil, and marigolds have gotten nice and bushy, filling in the space. And I have a hollyhock that will take some more time to grow, but it's in there. The sunflowers are nice and tall in the center. But as we come around to this other side, it's a little more sparse, and there's a couple reasons for that. One is that some of the plants here are slower growing, particularly these scabiosa. But the other reason is that I've had several of the plants pulled down by gophers and also dug up by other critters in the backyard. Fortunately, I have some brilliant coreopsis on this side to make up for the lack of the other plants. By the way, if you'd like plans for this dye garden, you can download them. The link is in the description below, and that's free. To get the plans with instructions, head on over to my website and you can purchase it there. The link for that is also in the description below. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and look for the dye garden playlist in my channel. About 4 weeks after planting this garden, I was really starting to worry about how I was going to keep it going despite the garden intruders. When plants are started from seed, it takes several weeks to replace any plant that gets dug up or eaten. I'm going to show you some of the solutions I arrived at, but real quick before that, let's take a look at the progression of the garden over 8 weeks. At week 0, I started the garden with some nursery plants in the corners of the garden, as well as a couple sunflower plants that I had started in pots. At this point, I was still waiting for some of my other seedlings to grow up a little bit before I planted them in the ground. At this time, I also started a couple of sunflower seeds directly in the ground because my existing sunflowers were looking a little leggy. In weeks 3 and 4, the direct sown sunflower seeds had grown significantly. They looked strong, and so I pulled out the weak sunflowers that I had started in pots. At this time, I also direct sowed the indigo, scabiosa, basil, and coreopsis. I also planted the remaining seedlings that were still in pots. These plants were scabiosa, coreopsis, and hollyhocks. By week 6, the gophers had eaten my big, beautiful sunflowers, and you may notice in this photo that there's a pot in the middle where the sunflowers had been. In this pot, I started some new sunflowers, and I wanted to keep them safe from the gophers. A few days later, the gophers started eating other plants, and I also had some creature digging in the garden. And at this point, I realized I was going to need to protect my other plants as well. Fortunately, my remaining plants continued to fill in and begin blooming, while I started looking for ways to offset the gopher and digging problems that were happening in my garden. The first thing I did was to order some gopher guard planting baskets, and when they came, I dug up carefully some of my plants and replanted them inside the baskets in the ground. I had to shade the plants for several days while they recovered, but they did recover successfully. While I was anxiously waiting for the gopher guard baskets to arrive in the mail, I realized that if I lost any more plants, it was going to take 6 to 8 weeks to replace them by starting new seeds, and it occurred to me that maybe I should keep some seeds constantly starting in some pots just in case I had to replace some plants. So this took me on a whole different side quest to start a little plant nursery in my backyard. On top is the seedling tray where I start the seeds, and then below is where I can let them grow a little more until I'm ready to plant them in the garden. And if I don't end up needing them, that's fine too. I might find another corner or give them away or just compost them at the end of the season if I never end up needing them. This is a snapshot of one small garden over 2 months. Any garden is an ongoing project, whether it's over one season or from year to year. While this garden started out as a way to augment my creative practice in the studio, the garden itself also became a creative pursuit. Learn about the planning and planting of this dye garden by watching my whole Plant a Dye Garden series on my YouTube channel at Wendy A Studio.